Hello, everybody. We're getting a few people coming in. May I make sure that everybody can hear me? Could you possibly indicate that in the chat if the sound is clear? Thank you. It's so odd to be speaking to myself. I can see myself, but not you. So, okay. While we're waiting for people to arrive in the next minute or so, would you be able to tell me in the chat, which I will be saving later, would you be able to tell me what level you're teaching at? That would be interesting. You know that this talk is about French only, but it can apply to other languages, but I will not. I will only look at French. I'll be basing my examples on books that I've written, but in French for the IB standard level or higher level, but the activities that I'm going to be mentioning will be available, adaptable for other levels, A levels and GCSE and whatever. Okay, so we've got people with GCSE and A level, key stage 2 to adults, great. And where are you in the world? Are you mostly UK based, or because of this wonderful silver lining of online conferences, we can go from all over the world. And I see there's somebody from Cheshire, exotic, and Russia, and Spain, and Stockholm. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so as I have a fair amount of things that I'd like to share with you, and maybe give you a chance at the end to share how you do the vocabulary work that I'm going to mention, I'm going to start now. Okay, sorry, I've just got to make sure I've got the talk on the screen. And again, I would like you to tell me whether you can see my screen. Is this working? A quick yes? Yes? Okay. Great. So today I'm going to share something that I've been working on, well, for many, many years, but focused on recently. Sorry, I'm going to start my timer so that I don't go over the limit of time. Easily done. And it's how to beat this all too familiar conundrum about how not to forget what you learn, how not to forget the vocabulary that we learn. And out of interest, how many of you share this Ebbinghaus forgetting curve with their pupils? I've shown this to my students and they're shocked. You know, how do I forget that easily? And also, obviously, it helps to reinforce the points that you need to review over and over again if you don't want to forget. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Danielle Bourdet. You might come across me on social networks as French Matters or Language Matters. I share a lot of ideas, and I also publish. So I've got two hats on. I've been working in publishing for many years now. I've recently published for the international market, for the IGCSE or the IB program, and Panorama Francophone is for the ab initio. I've been working on ideas about how to gamify activities in the classroom and publish games for teaching primary French, which actually is for teaching languages. It doesn't have to be primary, it doesn't have to be French. Obviously, some games are for French only and for primary only, but quite a lot of ideas are easily adaptable. And the books that I'm going to use as examples, really, because I wanted to show you how to use these sort of resources, are my own. Sorry, at the A to Z for French B for the IB program, and I haven't used that because it's just come out. The A to Z for French ab initio, which is for the beginners. I also have a different cap, which is that of a tutor, international tutor, a tutor kids from China, India, America, and the UK for all exam. I specialize in exams, so exam skills. And this is my setup. And this is my lovely Ellie. And she's been my student for the last 5 years. She's on to year 12 now. Research has, well, first of all, I always ask my students I give my students a questionnaire at the start of the year when they come to me asking them what their problem is, what they find difficult, what we should work on. And I thought I would share some of the answers that I get, because it is quite enlightening in terms of what they find difficult. So I really need help with learning the vocab, as we don't do that in class. Right, okay. This is very frequent, actually. We move so fast and cover so much in class, I just can't remember it all. Again, with my course book writer cap on, I know how much content we put in. I know it's too much and that we should go that a little should go further, but we need to cover the syllabus, blah, 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 blah. So not enough time to recycle. I've used Quizlet, Memrise, all sorts of apps, but still very little sticks. I'm not a great fan of those apps, but obviously some of the kids are not either. I struggle to make sentences which are grammatically correct with words in the right order. This is A-level students. Yes, because often they learn vocab in nouns or verbs in different lists. And that's not helping them to make sentences. I read a lot in French, it helps. But when it comes to writing, I just can't remember things. That's from someone who said, my teacher told me to read and expose myself to a lot of texts. And of course they do. But again, if it's receptive rather than productive, how far does it stick? And the last one, I'm okay in grammar, but I don't really know how to use what I've learned. That's when I'm told, can we do the subjunctive? Can we do the use of the past conditional? So we go over, and then they don't know how to use that actually productively in essays or in the oral presentation of the cards, for instance, for the A level. So I thought I would try and help, and not only my students, but other students, by thinking how can we help with that issue with a vocab book that won't just be a list of words that don't connect. Obviously, words, nouns are essential, but how else can we help them for it to stick? So I've used the same format in both books, and I encourage my students to make their own books. I'm not necessarily selling my gear, but I want a vocab list that that helps them. So my vocab lists are made on the same principle that yes, you do need to know the core words, the high frequency words and phrases. Like in this instance, we have paix and conflit for the IB. Why the war? You need the nouns. But equally, you need to know what goes with around the noun, so the collocation. So we work a lot on collocations, mostly with verbs and nouns, but it can also be, adjectives and nouns. I'm assuming you're familiar with collocations, but if you're not, collocations are words that tend to frequently work together, so that, for instance, in English, you will say to pay attention to something. In French, we don't use payer, we use faire attention. You say to bake a cake. In French, we don't say to bake, we say faire un gâteau, or not cuire un gâteau. So that's what I mean by collocations or co-occurrences. What I encourage them to do as well are simple sentences, which in my book corresponds to sort of the standard level, where they use the vocab in full sentences. And what I have suggested they do in their own thematic lists is also complex sentences. So for the higher level, for the IB, with showing off what they learn in grammar. So with specific language features like how to introduce an idea, how to use phrases that will attract the subjunctive that they are so keen on learning. So basically modeling, so what I do in this book, modeling the use of those linguistic features. But then once you have a book or once you have your list, what to do about it? And that's the sort of feedback I had, and we don't do it in class. I thought maybe there's a way of doing it in class that wouldn't take too much time, but that would also involve maybe them being away from the screen rather than on Quizlet and so on. I know the screen offer a lot of pluses, but maybe off screen, so that we take on board the fact that research has shown that actually pen and paper can work as well sometimes. And also maybe putting things together in class and work in groups, but with minimal teacher prep. Okay, which is also the basis of my ideas of gamification thing for the primary, which was no tech, no prep from the teachers. So what should they involve, these no tech, no prep tasks? Well, obviously no prep from you. They are the ones that are going to do the work. The students are. They should involve them in the making of the task. And that is something that, again, research, like if you read research by Paul Nation, the vocabulary learning guru, he said that you need to be involved in the making of this task. It would be much more efficient than filling a gap fill made by your teacher. We need to create opportunities to revisit the vocab in all 4 skills. Again, research is showing that that is absolutely vital. We want to manipulate vocabulary through meaningful chunks and sentences, not individual words. Increase the awareness of specific linguistic features. So as I mentioned, when do you need the subjunctive and all that? And encourage fluency and increase the speed of retrieval. So the activities that I'm going to suggest, I hope, are going to maybe give you some ideas, if you are not doing this already, of doing this simply in class. So I'm going to share a few of them with you. So the first one, no, I just wanted to actually read the quote from Paul Nation, who says, encourage students to take informed responsibility for their own vocabulary learning. If students know what vocab to learn and how to learn it, their learning can be much more effective than if they are reliant on teacher-prepared exercises and material. Students also need to be motivated and encouraged to make their own vocabulary learning decisions. And I think that's important because some of the activities that I'm going to present ask them, for instance, to make mistakes. So if you are asked to make mistakes, you have to make a decision and you've got to know the correct version. So these are activities that have, and these ideas always have two sections here. One is at home, is what the students do to prepare. And in class is actually the performance. Again, by preparing their own exercises, they have a stake in the performance. So this l'imposteur, sort of translated as interloper, what do I suggest my students to do? Well, first they study a specific section in the book, and ideally on a theme you would like to revisit, something that you've done a little while ago, as opposed to just now. They then write sentences from that section, but they change one element. And then in class, the students read out their sentences. So that means that they have read, they have written. In class, they are listening and they are speaking. And the class also, you can make teams or pairs or groups or whatever to make, maybe to play up the competitive sides of this. You can ask them to spot the difference from memory. So they will have had to spend a little while on their trying to memorize the activity, the vocabulary. So an example, for instance, on the topic of cultural identity, the French-speaking world, there was a sentence from the book which was "Le français est valorisé aux dépens des langues maternelles et cela crée du ressentiment." That's a sentence from the book or from their own list or from any book, as long as it has that sort of sentences, because most actually, which was one big motivator for writing this, was that there wasn't a book with sentences, which means French is valued at the expense of mother tongues, and that creates resentment. And the student wrote, "Le français est valorisé aux dépens des langues maternelles et cela crée de bons sentiments." So the same start. The French is valued at the expense of mother tongue, but this creates good feelings, good sentiments. Obviously, that student that chose that knew that it was going to be difficult to hear, so he made a decision, okay, about it was trying to be clever, and the class had to spot the bon sentiment, obviously, which was the opposite of what the sentence was saying. So that's called that l'imposteur. Toilettage de phrases, sentence grooming. What do they do at home? So at home, students review again specific pages that you might have selected from any previously covered topic. And then they write sentences using the language from those pages. But this time, I ask them to insert a mistake, being a spelling mistake or a grammar mistake. And obviously in class, students write their sentences, so on whatever you use, whiteboard, for the class to see, and they have to spot, sorry, I'm going to switch off my, they have to spot the mistake. if they spot more than one mistake, what happens? Then the person having made that sentence gets points taken away because there should only be one mistake. So if there are several, tough. So for instance, this student here on the topic, the importance of education, decided in this sentence, which reads, il est crucial que tout le monde peut recevoir une éducation de qualité. It's crucial for everyone to receive a good quality education. The mistake was obviously on the peut, which should have been puisse, because il est crucial que asks for the subjunctive. So that's toilettage de phrase. It can be very quick at the start of a session, maybe, but it would be interesting if you were to actually say whether in the chat, I will be saving the chat, so it would be good feedback, if any of this would be something that you already do, or if you don't do this, is it something that you would consider doing, or are you doing something different? It would be interesting to share what you do to help. And maybe also tell me if you use a vocab resource, be it your own that you make or your student's own, or a specific resource. Suite logique or follow-up. Okay, so again, at home, students are, you make two teams. Each student in each team select collocations. So this is really specifically focusing on collocations from different sections of the book that you have already covered, ideally. And so they should all be familiar with those collocations, or it's going to remind them of them. In class, students from each team then read out the beginning part of the collocation, and students from the opposite team then have to provide the a second part of the expression. They could use whiteboards, for instance, if you use whiteboards, or just a piece of paper. And then you'd have to be a referee in that, because obviously there are more than one possibility for many of these expressions. When I did it with my students, we used the topic of expatriate communities. Well, because it's on a one-to-one basis, I had avoir le mal, and they had to come up with du pays. They could have said avoir le mal de mer. Obviously, it wouldn't have fitted the expatriate community. Avoir le mal du pays means to be homesick. Avoir le mal de mer means to be seasick. So it had to be with it, something that made sense within the topic, obviously, of expatriate communities. And a second example was les citadins aiment faire un retour. So urban dwellers like to go back to. And then the collocation in the book was aux sources. But it could have been un retour à leurs racines, to their roots. So, and you need to decide whether that's a possible. Sorry, I'm going a little bit too fast. And the last example was on se sent déraciné et on perd. Again, on perd. So we feel uprooted and we lose what? Okay. The example in the book was ces repères, your sort of landmarks, but it could have been of the vocab, as long as it makes sense. And as long as it's sort of words that do collocate. So that's why I sort of called it suite logique. phrase aux enchères, sentence auction. So what do they do there? At home, they have to rephrase a sentence that is listed on their list in the book, whatever. Changing it as much as possible. So the rephrasing is something that is quite interesting for in preparation of things like the summary for A-level. So the use of synonyms and also the use of registers, because some of the summary, I find that the A-level students that have really struggled with summarizing and are not always matching the register. So it's an activity that could actually help with working on both those. So once they have rewritten as much as possible a sentence in class, they then share this sentence. And again, you've divided the class into teams or whatever groups. And you can do that orally, or they can write it on the board. They share their rewritten sentences, and the others bid for those sentences. Hence the sentence auction or the phrase aux enchères. They bid for sentences that are they think are good, or those that they can improve. The aim is to collect as many correct sentences as possible. So I'll give you examples for this. So there is a sentence in the book which is "La politique, moi, je m'en fiche complètement." Okay, and in the book it tells you the register, because it's very important in the IB to have that register indication. La politique, moi je m'en fiche. How can you rephrase this so that you keep obviously the meaning, but also the register? So the possible rephrasing: perso, la politique, ce n'est pas pour moi. That would be a good sentence to collect. That is fine. If a sentence is "La politique n'est d'aucun intérêt pour moi," it's fine, except it's can be improved because the register is a different register. This is informal, familiar. This is much more formal. So interesting again for, as I said, the summary and working on registers in writing or speaking. Brève de comptoir. Brève de comptoir is off the cuff. Well, it was obvious. Yes, it's a sort of brève de comptoir is the sort of little conversation you overhear when you're in a bar, for instance. You know, people would be at the comptoir, the bar, and you'd hear snippets of conversation. So I thought of using that idea of overhearing a conversation. You try and make out what people are talking about. Well, I do. What it is that, yes, what are they saying? What is it about? So I thought I'd use that in an activity. But it needs preparation. This would be more to do with advanced students rather than intermediate or beginners, obviously. So at home, give students in pairs, so they would work in pairs, a different section of the book to revise: book, list. Okay. Each pair then prepares a conversation. They can do it together as homework using the vocabulary in that section. Ideally, avoiding to make the topic too obvious, because then in class, what the pair has to try and do is hold the conversation, so speak aloud for as long as possible. You could time it, because then they would get bonus points if they could have a very long conversation. while the class listens and tries to work out the topic. So the class, when the class has, when the first pair to guess what the topic is about, would stop the conversation if that pair is correct. So an example of that would be, so again, on the topic of the importance of education, okay. I'm going to read it and I'll translate it in case there are people that are not French speaking. Just to give you a feel of what this involves in terms of work for the students. So the conversation goes, selon moi, c'est une des clés de la réussite. According to me, it's one of the keys of success. C'est vrai, ça forge le caractère. That's true. It builds up your character. Effectivement, et ça permet de développer des compétences. Indeed, and it allows you to develop your aptitudes, your skills, your competencies. Tout à fait d'accord. C'est pour cela qu'il faut lutter contre l'échec scolaire. Absolutely, and that's why you need to fight against failure at school. Oui, et c'est essentiel de faire reculer l'analphabétisme dans certains pays. Yes, and it is essential to fight against illiteracy in some countries, and so on. So what these two have done is that they have used expressions listed in the book, which are in green. Clé de la réussite, ça forge le caractère. Again, all collocations, okay. Développer des compétences, lutter contre l'échec scolaire, faire reculer l'analphabétisme. Those were the expressions under in the sort of sections on collocations. And what they've done is that they've actually used made up, so use languages that a language that they've learned to communicate and agree or disagree. C'est vrai, effectivement, tout à fait d'accord. And then to give opinion, selon moi, c'est essentiel. C'est pour cela que. So that, and those of you that are using group talk might be familiar with that sort of work where you try and make use of all those things that they learn to communicate. So that's so the class would then have to try and work out that this was about education. What is the clé de la réussite? Qu'est-ce qui forge le caractère? Qu'est-ce qui développe des compétences? What allows you to fight against l'échec scolaire, failing at school, and so on. And obviously, the group that wins would be the group that has the longer conversation, because obviously they've had to use quite a lot of padding and quite a lot of expressions from the book. Oh, the list, sorry. The last activity that I wanted to share with you was something that is actually from the book I mentioned, the primary French, which is sentences. So at primary level, we do a little sun in the middle of the board, and we have various vocab on a theme. So if it's food, we'll have j'ai un chien. If it's animals, you'll have j'ai un chien, j'adore les chats, I have a dog, I love cats, you know, so that sort of thing. Obviously, at IB standard level or higher level or A level or GCSE, you want something a little bit more challenging. So we, with my students, we use to revise. We use this to revise a selection of phrases that I call the show-off phrases or the wow phrases. What I tell them will make the examiner's eyes go, wow. which are all things that we want them to learn, but that they are telling me they're finding hard to use. I will show you what I mean by the wow phrases in a minute. So in what they do is they decide to revise those. So I have a document which is available on the website of the publisher where I've listed my my wow phrases. I'll show you in a minute. And what happens in class is that, again, you have 2 teams. And I think that can be done quite quickly at the start or at the end, or whenever you have 5 minutes. So team A draws a sun and a number of arrays depend on how many of these sentences or topics you want to cover. So team B will then have to write a sentence for each of the arrays, so each of the topics, using the wow the wow phrase in the middle. So here I'll give you an example of using c'est inadmissible que, because that will call for a subjunctive. Now the topics are vie active, réseaux sociaux, social networks, progrès scientifique, internet, bénévolat, volunteering, évolution de la famille, changes in family. So the topics that they would study anyway. So team B, so team A has chosen c'est inadmissible que, and team B will have to spot one that it needs the subjunctive and then write sentences in the subjunctive on all of those topics. So for instance, c'est inadmissible que l'on puisse envisager le clonage humain. So in progress scientific progress, it's unacceptable that we should envisage a human cloning. Or c'est inadmissible que tant de gens doivent compter sur l'action de bénévoles pour se nourrir. It's unacceptable that so many people have to rely on volunteering, volunteers, the actions of volunteers to be able to feed themselves. So basically, again, this would be on bénévolat, or it could be on social issues. So that's the soleil de phrase. So really easy, no prep for you. I don't think in any of these, they are the ones that do the work, not you. Your work is just to tick and to tell them off when they make a mistake and forget the subjunctive. This is the sort of things that I've put online. So if you want this presentation, if it's of interest to you, the links that I've put in, and I'm going to be sharing a few links now, will be in the PDF that I could send you. So if you want, you'll have my email address. Just email me and I will share this with you. It's also actually on the website of the books that I've mentioned freely. It's a freebie. So this list of wow phrases. So what do I mean by that? It's a language function and it's transferable language. So it's, for instance, how to give a negative opinion. How to give a positive opinion. C'est honteux, c'est une honte, c'est scandaleux. All these are listed in the book, and I've just made one big document with all of these transferable language, which you want. And this is what this last activity was trying to do, is to show them that if they've come across c'est inadmissible que in one topic, that doesn't preclude them from using it in another, but it's not an automatic shift for them. So again, this is freely available, and you don't have to have the book to use this at all. How am I doing on time? I've got 6 minutes left. So I thought I would share some of the tools that I use in my writing and in teaching. Some of them you might be familiar with already. Actually, it would be interesting to know if you are familiar. So if you want to put that in the chat, that would be good. And any question you have, please put that in the QA. I see that there's one saying, will you get a recording of your training? Yes. So it's recorded. I think it's recorded. Yes. And as I said, if you email me, then I will share with you. If you don't mind giving me your email. So where are collocations? I work a lot with collocations with my students, and this is a really nice tool for that. So what does this do is that if you put for instance, an adjective or a noun or a verb in this little section here, it will throw up, and I'll make that a bit bigger. It will throw up the words that are co-occurrent with that. So I've put age. I don't know why. I just put age. And it threw up sort of phrases. So, il va sur ses 13 ans. Il va sur what? But this, is almost 13. How we speak about age, basically. Verbs and noun collocations. Yeah, accuser son âge, to feel your age, and the adjectives that go with that. So that's, sorry, I've got to go back to, so that's the tonytraduction.net. Some useful links, again, the co-occurrence. This is the Canadian site. Canadians are very good. Canadian language sites are very, very good. Again, you put in your noun or your verb or whatever, and I've put age again, and the co-occurrence come up. Okay, so âge adulte, âge avancé, bas âge, and etc., all with verbs. So that's another really good website. Another one is for synonyms. So again, synonyms obviously useful for listening, because in the creation of listening materials for tests, A-level and all that, you use synonyms to try and catch them out, can't you? So being aware of synonyms is good skill to have. Again, I put age, and this one, sorry, it's this one. I just wanted to make a bit bigger. Came back with 15 synonyms, the antonyms as useful, okay, and a list of how frequent they are used. Frequently they are used. So this is University of Caen. This is a fairly well-known site for synonyms, Reverso Synonyms. What is good about this one is that you can have that according to register as well. This one, Interactive Language Toolbox, is really, really interesting, but I cannot show you because the site is down. It has been down for a couple of days. What it is, though, is similarly to the collocation website, you put in a noun and it comes up with masses of examples, synonyms, the words that collocate. It really is brilliant. I don't know why it's down. It wasn't down when I made my presentation, but it's down now. I don't know why it is. I have the time for one go at trying. No, we'll be back in a few days, so it doesn't work again. If you're interested in globalizing your French, then there is the Dictionnaire des francophones, which is something new. They have related work around the francophone work, so it's French from all over the world. You need to know the word you're looking for, though. I'm not an academic, so I take my cue from those who are, and you might have come across these people already. I find that Steve Smith's informedlanguageteacher.com website has a lot on vocabulary. Gianfranco Conti's website has a lot about how learning should happen. They have both written this book about memory, what every language teacher should know and remember, which is really interesting. The quote I made from Pollination was from this work here at the bottom, this magazine, and it has quite a lot of other articles about language retention. If this is me, if this is of interest to you, I'm happy to keep in touch. I have secured sorry, I've got to stop this. A discount, well, not a discount actually, but just giving a free book to whoever gets picked up. So if you email Mary James at LME, which is the publisher, she will send you a copy so you can have French or other languages if you are of a language of the vocab book. That's me. I often that's my email, French Matters, and I'll put it in the chat here. And I will be publishing fairly soon, working on at the moment something called Francosphere about the French speaking world, having resources and looking at language in other countries than France. I have questions. My email address I've just sorted. I would like to tutor Chinese students. Can I have the address? The address, I'm not sure what address you mean, Fabiola. And yes, so if you put your email addresses, either you email me to frenchmatters@outlook.com, or if you want to put your email in the chat. Sorry, I've just noticed that I put my email in the chat, but I did it as a direct a message to somebody. That's my email address. And if you want to follow me on all these networks, you're welcome. I'd like your feedback. If you have any quick feedback, maybe 1 minute before I close the session, because I'm probably followed by some. Yes, I've got. Could you finish? So I am finishing now. Thank you very much for being here on a Sunday. I hope it's of some use to some of you, and have a lovely end of weekend. Thank you very much, and au revoir. I'm just going to save chat. Bye-bye, everybody.